John Munsell. Let's just get the important stuff out of the way. Go Tigers.
There you go. Go Tigers.
All right. All the way from Lafayette, CEO of Bazooka and adjunct instructor of AI at LSU. This is going to be interesting. Welcome to the Sales Podcast, man. How the heck are you?
Hey, thanks, Wes. Hey, I'm great, man. How about yourself?
I'm good.
Excellent.
So AI, I'm noticing, is popping up quite often on the Sales Podcast. But now we've got a professor at the Louisiana State University. You know, those Ohio State people, why are they in like Alabama? Like what?
Okay,
I'm like,
so
whatever, dude. It's LSU, man. Go Tigers. You know,
that's
just
right. Go Tigers. That's all
keep
we
this
need to
stuff
know.
simple.
That's right. Technically, two things. One, I'm not a professor. They would have to pay me through LSU in order to be a
Adjunct
professor.
instructor.
So I'm an
AI.
adjunct instructor.
I can't even read. It's right here on my screen.
Right.
I say the wrong thing.
Right. And fun fact, both of my parents went to Ohio State, Ohio State. So playing for the national championship and winning was probably the best day of my life.
Yeah. Well, so my wife doesn't listen to my podcast, so I can mention, like, I dated a girl from Ohio State. She was pretty cute. So I had a little soft spot for them. And then they gave us Joe Burrow.
That's
so
what I said.
They gave us Joe Burrow. So,
it.
you know, that it's not all bad. And they have a beautiful golf course. I was golfing back in the day when I went to visit. It was quite nice. So
you go on that golf course and you're going to see a bench that was dedicated by my uncle.
Oh, so, wow.
There you go.
Very nice. So how'd you end up in Lafayette and LSU?
Man, well, my dad was in banking, and he started in banking in Ohio, and then a guy named Chuck McCoy moved from Ohio to Baton Rouge, took over a bank there, and he brought my dad down when I was 5 years old, and there you go.
There you go.
For the most part, ever since. Spent 15 years in Tampa, not too long after I graduated, but then came back.
So are you the only instructor of AI at LSU? That's kind of a new thing they're doing?
No. That's an interesting story. So I had been doing, well, first of all, I had Bazooka for 22 years.
Right.
And we started off as a software development company, gradually grew into a mobile app development web design company, and then a digital marketing agency. And a little over 2 years ago, I sold off the agency part of things. And we'd been wrestling with AI for a while. And then I kind of saw, the reason I started Bazooka, I was in financial services for 16 years, but I started Bazooka because I saw the web coming out. And I'm like, man, that's the future. And so I quit to start an agency that was building web applications. And that was in Tampa. And then, fast forward, I'm watching AI and I was like, okay, that's the new future. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the agency and I'm going to go back in startup mode, which is a stupid thing to do at my age, but that's the way my propeller head works. So I started to do this thing called the CXO AI Roundtable. Every Friday, I'd bring in a bunch of CXOs and I would walk through some AI tools and teach them certain things about AI. And we got really, I was putting literally thousands of hours in AI and got to do some pretty interesting things. And then a guy calls me up and says, hey, a friend of yours, and this is a guy from LSU. He says, a friend of yours tells me you're doing some really interesting things at LSU or in AI. And I wanted to come by and tell you all the cool things that we're doing at LSU. We're building some LLMs. We're building all kind of stuff. And I'd love to show you what we're doing because we want to be the voice of AI in Louisiana and spread beyond that. I'm like, sure, man, come on over. So we scheduled an appointment, I don't know, like 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out. And one morning I'm sitting here on a team meeting on Zoom with my people, and my little notification comes up and it says, Roy Haggerty will be here in 15 minutes. I'm like, who the heck is Roy Haggerty? And I was like, y'all, maybe it's that LSU guy. And so I look and I go, ooh, it is that LSU guy. So I said, let me get off this call and clean up my office. The only time, Wes, in 21 years, I had an LSU shirt on. So I had an LSU rugby shirt on. I have never worn LSU attire to work literally in my life. by chance, I had an LSU shirt on. He comes in and he goes, "Oh, I like your shirt." And I go, "Well, I knew you were coming. I had to represent." And then, so he comes in, sits down, and he's telling me all these things that he's like, so I'm the executive vice president and provost of LSU. Do you know what that is? And I'm like, honestly, no. He says, well, there's the president and then there's me. I'm like, oh, and he goes, I'm over all of academia through all LSU campuses. I'm like, dang, okay, I should have worn a different shirt maybe. So
I might have combed my hair.
I should have. Right now, I might have even taken a shower out of it.
Use soap.
So anyway, he starts telling me all the stuff they're doing. He says he's an engineer by trade, and he has been building all kinds of GPTs and stuff on his own. And I'm sitting here thinking, oof, this guy knows what he's doing. And so then he says, so tell me what you've been doing. And, at that point, I'm feeling rather humble. And I'm like, well, okay, let me show you what I do. And I said, look, I created this framework that we call the AI strategy canvas. And I've been teaching people how to use it to build what we call scalable prompts. And he's like, what's that? Can you show me? And I'm like, yeah. So I pulled up the canvas and I start walking in through the canvas. He's like, oh, I've never seen anything like that. He says, do you have the prompt structure to match that? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So I pull up a couple of prompts and show him that. And he goes, whoa, that's next level stuff. I've never seen anything like that. And I'm like, really? And so he says, well, let me ask you something. I know this is kind of off the cuff, but would you be interested in teaching our honors students next semester? I was like, no. I said, I don't think I could do that. But I said, I tell you what, I think we could have a bigger impact on the workforce, because that's my passion, is helping businesses retain more employees and grow faster, because I've been a small business all my life. I said, I think we could have a bigger impact on Louisiana's workforce and small businesses by going through LSU's continuing ed and putting this out there. And he was like, I love that idea. I'll connect you with continuing ed. And so we did, and now we're in a partnership with LSU through LSU Online and Continuing Education to help upskill employees across the globe. And we got approached by a company that has 8,000 employees, and they originally just said, hey, can y'all teach us safety, security, and ethics? And I'm like, sure, but how many of your employees do you want to do that? He goes, well, all of them. And I'm like, well, then what? I said, but once they know that, you're basically going to let them loose on the playground, and they still don't know what the rules of the game are. They don't know how to play the game. Everybody's going to have to figure out their own game, and it's going to be a mess because they're all going to be doing it differently. And they're like, well, we just found out that we have a giant expensive license to Coursera. And I'm like, okay, but that really makes it even worse, because there are 3,000 plus AI courses on Coursera, all taught by potentially 3,000 different instructors. And so you're going to have all your employees learning it a different way, and nobody's going to speak the same language. And so what we propose to them is look, we're going to teach them at the top level the foundations of security, privacy, ethics in AI. But then in the next foundational level, we're going to teach them how to use the AI strategy canvas. So now all of a sudden they all speak the same language. They know how to operate AI, from developing strategy to implementing strategy to actually writing prompts. And then we're going to teach them how to create what we call scalable prompts, or scalable prompt engineering. And then what we'll do is we'll teach them practical applications in their unique skills tracks. So we would have skills tracks for HR, for marketing, for sales, for legal, for customer service, et cetera. And they're like, oh, that's exactly what we want. And so that's what we're building now with LSU, and we call it the AI Skills Builder series. And it's a suite of video-based training that is operating through a learning management system. And so people could just pick what skills track they want to go through their employer, and off we go.
Yeah.
More than a mouthful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. So how does this pertain to that local small business? Getting back to your industry, right? Or
yeah,
a web designer that needs more business, or always use a chiropractor as an example. How's a chiropractor going to use AI? Or how's a local, general contractor trying to drum up some business?
Yeah, great
Do they
question.
need to
Look,
know AI prompts?
oh man,
Does the quota
yeah,
carrying salesperson, right? Somebody's sitting in a cubicle right now listening to this going, I got to figure out how to get more leads.
yeah,
Marketing isn't making
yeah.
it happen. What does
Well,
this
so
AI prompt have to do?
the first three cohorts we taught were in marketing, what we call AI mastery for marketing. And that's one of the skills tracks in the skills builder now. But in it, we teach, man, so many things. First of all, just how to become more efficient in your own job. Second of all, from a sales perspective, if you think about it, the more you know about your prospect, the better off you're going to be.
Yep.
So there's a ton of intel that you can gather through AI, through different tools like Perplexity or ChatGPT or Claude. What we teach people how to do is create what's called, are you familiar with like a buyer persona?
Sure.
Yeah. So we have a series of prompts that we go through that helps them create a really detailed persona and map it to the buyer's journey. So now we can take all that information, we can turn it around, and either in Claude or in ChatGPT, doesn't matter. I'm using low end tools here. You could literally create a sales training bot, if you will. And with other tools like HeyGen, you can bring that thing to life to where you can do role playing with sales, which is fascinating. You program it up with all of your information about your products, your services, your competitors, your competitive advantage, how you position it, and all that. And you could literally have a conversation with AI, and you can tell the AI to be essentially a cold call, right? And then you can tell it to be resistant or to immediately say yes or any number of things. And it's fascinating how you can really shore up your sales team by having them have a conversation with AI. And one of the gals who's in our mastermind group, she built one of these things for the ophthalmology industry. And it was really fascinating. Now, this is before she could actually put a face on the AI. So it was more back and forth with typing to just teach, where they would ask questions and they would do a little role play. And then she came to our mastermind group one day and she says, John, I need help. And I'm like, sure, what you need? She goes, I can't get my chatbot to stop talking like a pirate. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? A literal pirate? And she's like, yeah. And I go, well, show me what you mean. So we go ask the chatbot something and it goes, ahoy, matey. And sure enough, the damn thing's talking like a pirate. And so then I said, like, oh, show me your prompt. So we start going through her prompt and she didn't follow the framework in this particular area and she got off track. And so I was like, okay, well, here's your problem. Let's go back to the framework. What we do is we teach people how to calibrate the voice. So instead of using a sentence to say, I want you to use a nice, friendly voice with a little bit of humor, blah, 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 blah. We don't do that. We literally have variables and then we can calibrate them from 1 to 10. And so I could have, humor as a 10 and it'll be goofy as all get out, or I can drop humor to a 1 or a 0 and it won't be so. So we have like 57 variables that we can pull in as needed to calibrate that voice. But once we calibrated her voice, it was great. It was nice, friendly, normal sounding. Wasn't using ChatGPT words like delve and skyrocket, and junk like that. It was good.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen things like, you could have, Freud be your psychotherapist for free. And but then there's still all these people making courses and prompts on AI. Aren't there? Can't I just type in ChatGPT, hey, how do I use AI?
Oh, yeah.
Teach me how to use AI as if, you were Elon Musk as my private tutor or something.
You can do that. It's not very effective. Like there are a couple of tools that'll help you generate prompts. And every time I've used those, and I've even asked ChatGPT to create a prompt and once you turn around and you execute the prompt, you realize, okay, it's missing a lot. And that's why we have this framework that we call the strategy canvas to help you think through all the things that you need to provide it so that it works. And then think of it this way. If you teach an employee, you hire a new employee, maybe it's your executive assistant, right? You teach that employee for a full year how you want him or her to work with you as your assistant. That person now knows your calendar, knows everything there is about the products that you sell and all that stuff. And finally, after a year, that assistant becomes really effective. You can just tell that person to do whatever and it does it. But if you never gave it any instruction, then that assistant would be calling on its prior employer employment, right? It would be pulling out of his or her own knowledge, right, on how to respond to what you're doing without any context on the way you want it. And ChatGPT and Claude and all them, the same way, except for they've been educated on the world's information. And so the way I always tell people, look, if you don't know what excellence looks like, you're going to get average or below average out of ChatGPT or all those, because that's all they know, right? They know everything, but they don't know what excellence looks like. So you have to, if you're going to teach the AI how to do stuff and you just tell it to tell me what you know, you're not going to get very good information. On the other end, like I say, with that sales training stuff, if you can give it all of your information and kind of tell it, you just stay here with all the information that I'm giving you, and then all of a sudden it becomes really, really effective.
So you talk about like using the tool to research a prospect.
Yeah.
But I thought these tools are like 2 or 3 or 4 years behind on stuff.
Well,
are they catching up?
Yeah, they're catching up, but you can also go in real time. So like ChatGPT now can crawl the web in real time and pull back data. Perplexity will crawl the web. I love Perplexity. I love it a whole lot more than, say, Gemini or Google or whatever. So it'll use AI and scour the internet and come back with really current information. And then you can take that data and you can put it into whatever you need to write, let's say, a blog post or something like that. So, like, for instance, if I were to go, and I haven't done this lately, but if I were to go into ChatGPT and say, what does Bazooka do? It would probably say that we build websites. It used to for a year. I don't even know what it says now. Because it's current information is theoretically it's 6 or 8 months old now, but a lot of it's not totally refreshed. So it hasn't, scoped out our website to see that we don't do websites anymore, that all we do is AI coaching and consulting.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have to then tell it to go, I'd have to give it my URL, go to bizzuka.com and then tell me what this company does. And so, like, one of the things that I'm getting ready to teach our cohort tomorrow is how to pull from a URL and then develop a buyer persona with all of the interesting facts and figures you need to know about who that person is, and how I can sell to that person. Mm-hmm. And I can also reverse that and say, I want you to tell me who they sell to, right? So, but you have to give it a URL. Now, Claude won't search the web for that.
Okay.
But ChatGPT will and Perplexity will.
So, yeah, I haven't used Perplexity, so I'm pulling this up. It looks kind of like ChatGPT. So it's a competitor, or is it more than that?
I don't know that I would call it a competitor as much as it's just another AI tool. The thing I like about it is, first of all, you can't really write good copy with Perplexity. It's really more of a research tool. So to me, I use it actually a whole lot more than I use Chat. I'll definitely use it more than I use Bing. But I'll use it more than I use Google, depending upon what I'm trying to do. Like, if I'm trying to write a blog post and I need the most current statistics out there, I'm going to grab all that from Perplexity, because it'll also give me the notations and the URLs of where it found all that information. that makes
Okay.
a really easy blog post to write because now I'm footnoting everything and it's pulling all those footnotes back. Then
Okay.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that information, I'm going to go into Claude, and I have a series of prompts that I run for something we call a news jack post, where I see something interesting in the news. I'm going to go to Perplexity and have it find other relevant pieces of information to verify that the news is actually real, and then I'll come back to Claude and I'll sprinkle that with my own thoughts around the subject and create a really lengthy blog post to add value to our readers,
Interesting. So how did you
complicated, but
learn that
interesting.
sequence? Because I mean, this is a whole new thing. Because I'm talking with people about CRMs, right? And we'll talk about this is basically like an API, if you will, or using something like Zapier. I remember when I first saw Zapier 10 years ago, I was like, I didn't get it. I'm like, why? Why do I need to connect apps? Like, what the hell? I got my app. It's good enough. And then it's like, of course you got to connect apps because not everything does everything. And so this is literally like learning how to research all over again, it's just changing how we do everything
Yeah.
in research and prospecting and content creation,
Well, it's so much faster for one thing. If you do it right, it doesn't sound like a machine. If you do it wrong, it's going to sound like a machine. I mean, I can spot these things a mile away when they come in an email, like, oh yeah, that's all ChatGPT. But if you know how to tell ChatGPT or Claude how to write, it'll sound pretty natural. You're still going to have squirrely words that you're like, I would never string those words together, and you have to go do
right.
that again. But it gets you from 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds. That's what I
Yeah.
like about it, right?
Yeah.
But the analysis that it'll do is really cool. Like, for instance, we created in Claude, it's called a project. In ChatGPT, it's called a custom GPT, where you can literally upload a bunch of documents and have it query essentially against those documents. And so what we created is this extended buyer's journey. So instead of it having 6 stages, it has 12 stages. So it's very granular, if you will. And what I was trying to do is teach our people, look, if you see a comment on a post and you want to reply to the comment, or if we made a post, whether it's in a Slack group that we're in, or, somebody's LinkedIn or whatever, I want to make sure that the comment you put is going to move somebody forward in momentum on the buyer's journey and not backward. And so what we created was a little GPT, if you will, that would test the reply and tell somebody whether you were moving them forward in momentum or backward in momentum. And then it would suggest changes on what your reply should be. So it's pretty slick. Not only that, but I got it to where I can literally copy and paste when somebody sends me an email that was based on an email I sent them. So I have their reply to my email. I just copy that, throw it into ChatGPT with this little prompts. We call it a prompt stack that I have that just says craft a reply, and that's all it says. Craft a reply. Boom. It'll do a really nice reply. It's amazing. And then I just copy it and edit it up and go.
Yeah. So how would like a W-2 salesperson use this? Because they're going to push back on not wanting to pay for new subscriptions and stuff. At some point you got to invest in yourself. But
Yeah.
are there free tools? I mean, are most of these? Do they have a free version they could use?
Yeah. Yeah. So Claude's free, ChatGPT is free, Perplexity is free. They all have upgrade models. The upgrade models are far better, and you're only talking about $20. And the difference between the $20 version and the other one, in terms of how you can write prompts, is amazing. And in terms of the quality of the content that comes out of it is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they're a W-2 salesperson and they're in an organization that is, I don't know, anywhere worth their salt, you'd get a team version. And now it's more expensive as a team version, but the collaboration is awesome. I would say that the team version in ChatGPT, I'm not so sure it's worth it, but the team version in Claude has some features that I really like. So for instance, we have a team version. We have about 5 people on it. I want to say it's instead of it being $20 a month, it's $25 a month per person with a minimum of 5.
Mm-hmm.
So as a business, that $125 is well worth it because it saves us hours and hours and hours of work a month.
Yeah.
And if I'm trying to bill out an employee at $125 to $325 an hour, and I save 1 hour a month combined, I'm crushing it.
Yeah. 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 That's interesting. And so, man, I'm just looking at all the different angles from this. I'm taking notes. You're going. I mean, Hagen, Perplexity, Claude. I mean, do you even use ChatGPT at all? Or
All
all
the time.
these just
Yeah. I use the three of those that I just mentioned, and we're just starting to play around a little bit more with Hagen. It's made some major strides in the last year. There are other tools out there too, like 11 Labs, and there's a bunch of them. Like Hagen, you can clone yourself and your voice, and it's amazing what it'll do. I could literally give it a script after having it clone my voice and my movements and my face and whatever, and I could just record something, send it to you, and you would never know that it wasn't me actually doing it. That's what they call deep fakes too. So you have to be careful of those things.
Yeah. It's sending an audio file or a video of you?
Yeah. Video with audio. Right. Yeah. It's nuts. That's what you would use, for instance, to do the role playing.
Yeah.
It was like a good friend of mine built out an agent that would do just that. And he was having a conversation back and forth with this thing. And it was absolutely hilarious. I'm just watching. It was like you and me right now, side by side. He's asking this thing a question. The latency is almost nothing. So he'd ask it a question and this thing would reply back. And then he would go, no, 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 no. And then he was, I really wanted to know this. And the thing would go, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And then it would answer it. And you're just like, oh my God, this is crazy. It's just crazy. I mean, I want to say it was probably back in February. I gave a speech to a printing industry conference. So I was one of their speakers. And a week before I went on stage, there was a deep fake done in Hong Kong you may have read about. And it was a Zoom conference with the CEO of this large company. And they wired out 50, I think it was 50. It was either 5 or 50. It might have been $50 million. And the whole thing was fake, which is crazy. I've never thought about faking a Zoom conference, but they faked it to the degree that everybody on the call was like, oh, okay, I better wire this out. And I want to say that it was like, it was 5 different wires, and I think it was either 1 to 10 million a piece, 50 million. I don't know. It's still a hell of a lot of money, but totally
And
legit.
yeah, the staff
Fake. You
fell
can
for it. Like
Google it.
that's the boss, whatever. We got to do
Yeah.
this.
It's nuts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how do people stay abreast of this? I mean, you're coming out with a book, right? By the time the book comes out and I carve out time to read it, is it going to be outdated?
So the principles of the book won't be, which is why we teach in real time, because the interfaces of the software you use change. So the book is called Ingrain, and it's how to create an AI first culture in your business, from strategy all the way through execution.
Okay.
And what we teach in is, first of all, how to develop an AI strategy, just to have how do you have the C-suite conversation with your leadership team to say, what are we going to do about AI? How are we going to use it? What do we need to know? How are we going to pull it off? And then you would develop, a couple of AI initiatives. Well, at that point, you have to actually implement that. And so you're going to have to bring in teams to do that. And so we teach you how to have those cross-functional discussions so that you can accelerate. And then once you have all that in place, you got to have people who use it. And so then they need to know how to create what we call scalable prompts I keep going back to that phrase, scalable prompts, because
Right.
what you want is a prompt where you can swap out information so it can be used by a different team or for a different purpose, rather than having to rewrite it from scratch over and over again. We teach you how to create what we call prompt containers and prompt stacks. So, for instance, if you have a prompt stack for a persona and you're targeting CEOs of small businesses, let's say, but then at the same time, you might have a persona for your own employees, right? And you want to create, let's just say an announcement of some new product you got. Okay, well, what you say to the CEOs is going to be completely different from what you say to your employees.
Yeah.
And likewise, if you're going to try to write a sales letter to a specific group of people, that's going to be completely different from maybe a post where you're trying to recruit a new accounting manager, and the job description for the accounting manager is going to be different inside your employee handbook and rules than it is on the site. So while they may be the same task per se, the way you write it is completely different. And
Right.
so all those things are hot swappable parts of your prompt to
Mhm.
where the last thing you do is tell the AI what to do, but all the things ahead of it are telling it all the pieces of information it's going to need to do that execution. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and it's like if I'm talking to my Air Force buddies, I mean, we have one vernacular, right? Versus if
Yeah.
I'm talking to my overseas VA, I have to explain things differently. Versus I'm talking to a prospect that owns a $10 million company.
Yeah.
Basically, like they're saying the same things, but maybe with a few more F-bombs to my military buddies, right? Maybe a little slower to my VA, where English is the second language, and I want to make sure that some details are not overlooked,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, but these prompts, these stacks, I mean, I've always used snippets and expandable text like built into my iPhone
Mhm.
throughout my entire, I bought another tool, text expander, because it doesn't work on some things in Google. They kind of fighting each other. But I mean, I'm huge on, streamlining stuff. Boom, boom, boom. Like a few, if I type anything more than a few times, I've got like entrepreneur right all the time. I've got short codes for that. I have it for lowercase and
Right.
uppercase. Happy birthday, right? I get on
Right.
Facebook in the morning to say happy birthday to folks. HAPB, boom, spells it out. And, I'm that much of a freak about being efficient. So, what you're telling me is that it's chat or not, it's kind of, you be like a Kleenex, right? So AI can be like that on steroids.
Yeah. So, you think of it this way, right? Everybody thinks, oh, AI is easy. I just ask it a question and it responds. Yeah, that's easy, right? But the minute you want to use it over and over and over again to do something repetitive, or you want to teach somebody else how to do it and they go, oh, I could use this over here, then it becomes more like, I call it a spreadsheet. Okay. So in a spreadsheet, if I were going to build a spreadsheet to develop an amortization schedule, right? I'm let's say I'm a lender, and people call me all the time and they go, "Hey, how much would a car note be for a $25,000 car?" So I got a field for the amount of the loan. I got a field for the interest rate. I got a field for the number of months that they're going to pay on it, and then I got the payment. Right? That's just a simple spreadsheet calculator. So if I get a bunch of those calls in a day, then I don't want to have to constantly type the entire formula over and over and over again, because the formula is this at IRR blah, or at PMT, and you put in the commas and all that crap. All I want to do is write the formula once, but I want cells where I can just go, oh, you want a $25,000 card? Boom, I'm going to pop that in there because I know that the interest rate isn't going to change a lot. And then the next morning, somebody goes, interest rate changed. Okay, cool. I just changed it in my spreadsheet. My calculator still works. All I had to do is swap out the interest rate in a specific cell. Make sense? So that's the same thing. If somebody were going to say, okay, I'm at a bank and I need to calculate car loan payments, but the people in the mortgage side, they have to calculate mortgage payments. Well, there's the whole different thing. There's down payments and there's 360 potential payments instead of 72. There's all these things. They're just going to take that same spreadsheet, if you will, and swap out the variables that they need, and they're using it in another department. It's the same concept when we talk about scalable prompts. If you structure them right, anybody can come in after you and immediately recognize what you're doing, and then they could go, oh wow, if I just change this, I could use it over here for something completely different.
Will people always just be too lazy to go do this on their I mean, we've got Google. I could
Right.
type that into Google and find the calendar or calculator, and
Yeah.
I could type it into my own AI. I mean, on a free tool.
Well,
But,
the
I mean, they'll
more
always
you,
call a salesperson or somebody.
yeah, you
It
could,
won't do it.
but here's the thing: the more you use it, the more you just go, wow, this thing is insane what it'll do. Like I give you some crazy examples, and once you create the prompts, then you're like, okay, I don't want to have to type this over and over and over again. I need a place to store it, so we teach you how to store it in a database. But like when I was telling you about that conference that I was a speaker at, a bunch of people came up to me afterwards. They were giving me their business cards. One guy even he didn't have a business card, so he wrote his contact information on a piece of paper. All right. In the old days, I'd go back to my hotel room, right, and I'd try to, figure out how to put them all into my address book or, whatever, so I could send them an email, yada, yada. Or if I got all the way back, I would hand all the cards off to my assistant who would scan them in an old scanner, and then she'd have to
Used to
take
have,
the
yeah, I had
database.
cardscan.net. I still have some
Right.
contacts
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago.
Right. So
Their
all
card
I
scan
did,
updates in their contact record.
yeah. Well, all I did was I created what's called a GPT, created the GPT, and all I had to do was go back to my room, take a picture of the business card with the GPT, and it instantly turned it into a file that I could add to my address book. So on my phone, I'm just taking a picture, adding it to the address book, taking a picture, adding it to the address book. And I took a picture of the handwritten note, added it to the address book. It just mistook an S for a G, so I had to correct the typo. But I mean, that was quick and easy, and then I just built
Interesting.
that myself. I didn't have to go buy anybody else's software to do that.
So the AI tools have basically it's an optical scanner.
Yeah, they call it vision. Right. I mean, you could literally, I call these parlor tricks, but you could literally take a picture of what's in your fridge and tell it to, tell me what I can cook to dinner with all this junk.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. I took a picture, like my sister had never seen this stuff. And, she's a pretty technical person. I was over to her house. She's got a big old Doberman pincher, and I took a picture of her. And then I told ChatGPT, did I just freeze? No. Okay. I told ChatGPT to tell me what it saw. And it described, I see a young lady sitting on a couch. There's this kind of a pillow next to her. There's a window over here. I see a dog next to her. It looks like it's a Doberman pinscher that apparently wants to play. It's just like the craziest description I'd ever seen. And she was blown away. But yeah, it's really fascinating what it'll do these days. You haven't played around with ChatGPT on your phone yet? Wes, we gotta pull you in here.
Not doing that. I mean, I do it to look up things. But
Yeah.
what's interesting? My mother-in-law and my oldest son are legally blind.
Oh,
Um,
really? It'll see for them.
yeah, because my
Yeah.
son, I mean, if you met him, you couldn't tell unless you saw him work on a computer, right? But
Yeah.
we go to a fast food restaurant. He has to take a picture, and he zooms in on it. He'll hold it like right next to his face.
Uh-huh.
But it's weird because you could throw a football to him, he'll catch it. So it's but the fine things he
Yeah.
can't see.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law, being older, and it's a degenerative disease, macular degeneration, I think they call
Yeah.
it. So, I'm wondering if I can get her up and running on this.
Yeah. Easy. All you do is, like, if she can't see something, like can't read the menu or whatever, she could literally take a picture of it and say, read this to me. and it'll do it in a voice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well,
really,
and she
really cool.
has that turn. It's funny. She had some issues at home just in the last couple of weeks. I had to go there a couple of times, and I'm learning about the accessibility features, and she hates the audio voiceover on on the computer because she just pulls it up like super close, zooms in, and she, God bless her. I mean, she's helping like the HOA, she's helping out at church, but I mean, she is zoomed in, has to look around. But my son, being younger, he's a computer science major. I literally get vertigo, like seasick watching him because he has all the shortcuts with his hands, right? And he's zooming in, zooming out, changing applications, changing windows, changing tabs, and copy paste. And I'm like, dude, I'm getting dizzy. But
Really.
that's what he's had to do to adapt, right, and function. And but these are some interesting, for them, super interesting. But I love that whole scanning thing because I mean that's how I grew up, right? It's
Yeah.
literally scanning cards. So I mean the things that we used to pay for are just becoming free.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Let me see if I'll just show you because the voice is actually pretty fascinating. So if I were to, I'm just going to take a picture of my screen here, and it's got a picture of our AI skills builder thing. Let's see if it can make sense of it. And I don't know whether you can see this or not, but probably not.
Yeah, it's
Anyway, I
blurry.
took a picture of it in there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm going to hit the microphone button. I'm like, hey, tell me what you see here. Yeah, I got to do it the other way.
And so, what app are you using?
I'm using ChatGPT. It spells it all out, but
Okay.
I'm using
Oh, it's spelling it out versus saying it.
yeah, like if I were to I was trying to see if I can get it to just chat. Yeah, I have to use the headphones to do this.
Oh, I got you.
Hey, ChatGPT, tell me what the AI skills builder is. It probably won't know.
The AI Skills Builder, particularly through AWS, is an initiative aimed
Yeah.
at equipping people with essential artificial intelligence and
Yeah, so that's not it. But anyway, yeah, I don't know
No,
whether
that's
you heard
fine.
that or
Yeah,
not.
but I mean that's basically Siri, right, or
Yeah,
Alexa.
yeah, it is pretty much, but and it's very conversational. Like interestingly enough, speaking of LSU, I was headed to a game last fall, and it's an hour drive, right? But I needed to do some research at the same time, and I was literally doing competitive research on a company. And so I was just having a conversation with ChatGPT the whole way. I was like, I want you to look up this URL and then tell me about this, this, and this. And it would come back and it would say stuff. And I'm like, okay, tell me more about this. And they would do that. And I'm like, okay, well, who would be some of their competitors? And they would tell me that. And it's literally, I'm driving with both hands on the wheel, just having a conversation with an AI, and it's talking back and forth. It was really interesting. There's so much it'll do. It's crazy though. You just got to play around with it. Yeah, the main thing I would say is you should at a minimum you should start hopping into some of these AI groups. Like I'm in a couple of AI masterminds. We have one. You can see certain people on YouTube that are pretty good with it. The ones that it depends on what you're trying to do, but typically a lot of them on YouTube do what I call those parlor tricks where they're teaching you to do silly stuff. Once you get through all of that and you're through with the wow, this can do some crazy stuff, then you want to get into a business oriented mastermind group that'll help you figure out how do you actually write these prompts to pull all this stuff together. How do you do competitive research? How do you do persona research? How do you build a GPT that'll help train up my salespeople? There's so much that you can do with it, but you need to get with somebody so you don't have to actually do it all, but you're working with some people that have done it.
And so, are companies paying you to do this to show them? I'm still wrapping my brain around this.
Yeah. So we have we can coach people. All right. So when the book comes out, the book's going to be about $50, and essentially it teaches you everything that we've talked about here. We have different trainings. Like right now, I'm in a 2-week course teaching LSU professors how to do this stuff so they can teach students in the fall. I want to say it's August. No. We had to move it to mid-September. Mid-September, we have the AI Mastery for Business Leaders course that's coming up, and that's an awesome one. It's one of the skills tracks in the AI Skills Builder, and it's specifically for the leadership team. We've done the skills tracks for marketing and for sales. This particular one coming up is for the leadership team, and so it'll teach you all the foundational stuff that I talked about, but it'll also give you 3 levels of practical applications as a business leader, so you know how to really understand AI and how to help implement it. Most of the people that have gone through our training so far have been small businesses and C-suiters in those small businesses. And we have a couple of them that are larger, but for the most part, that's what they want to do. They were like, look, I don't know what I don't know, but I know I need to know. And so we help them get their sea legs and figure it out.
Yeah, because I see this, I've been in the CRM space and the marketing automation space since 2007. I was a user, in corporate America and embraced the technology and ended up falling into it and helping businesses. And I still help them because it's a lot of times they don't know what they don't know. Like, hey, you can create web forms and drip sequences and if-then variables and run through an entire campaign, do a promotion, get people to register. Those that don't, send another one. Those that do, stop the promotion, send them the reminder, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing, because they're all doing this manually or just not doing it because it's overwhelming. You can't send out 500 or 1,000 emails and track all that manually.
Right.
So, but it would hurt people's heads because they literally, we have to program the software. We have to program the campaigns, the workflows, the automation,
the decision trees, all
the
that.
decision trees, right? And so I see the same thing here. It's like, oh, wait a minute, like what? I'm kind of finally starting to see the light. It's like, holy crap, this is
right. Well, think about it. I don't know whether you played around with, I'm sure you played around with a ton of automation tools. Like I spent years working with Infusionsoft, which is now called Keep, right? And
that's the one. I wrote a book on Infusionsoft.
Yeah, that's a bear, right? But you had all these decision trees, and just trying to build a webinar funnel is a nightmare. But think about that in terms of like if you had a what I call voicemail jail. If you've ever messed with an IVR, then you have to say, okay, for press 1, do this. And then you have to add a bunch of other questions. And then depending on what they press, then they're going to have to go to another way and another way and another way. And same way with a chat bot on your website. You have to anticipate all the things and build out all those responses. With AI, you don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is give it the knowledge base, and that's it. And people ask questions and it responds. Now the only thing you have to do is tell it what to say if it doesn't know the answer. And tell it what to do. But it's going to respond in a natural manner. It's not going to respond with one of 4 responses, that kind of thing. It's so much easier and it's so much more intelligent. It's really, really fascinating. And it's powerful as hell.
Nice. So where do people get your book?
So if you go to Bizzuka, bizzuka.com/ingrain, INGRAIN, you can get on the waiting list. And because you're such a badass as an LSU alum like me,
I'm not an alum. I just grew up there. My parents
grew up there.
Parents went there. Aunts and uncles went there. Cousins went there.
Well, close enough for government work, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I'll do, and because I love your podcast. I love the stuff that you put out, and I want to make sure that I add value also. So I will give anybody who wants it a copy of the book for free, as long as they, in the field below, there's a comment field. They would have to say the sales podcast. If they just write in the sales podcast, or actually they just write in Ingrain, I'll know it came from you, and then I'll tee them up with a free one. On the other end, if they were to just ping me on LinkedIn and say Ingrain, nobody knows to use that word, so I'll just give it to you. So if they just pay me with that word, then I'll send them the information to make sure that they get the book for free. But I'm hoping that book will be ready by the end of September. It's just, I got 3 more chapters to rewrite. It's written. I just got to rewrite and put some graphics in it, so it's not so full of text.
Isn't that rough? I mean, I've written a couple books, and it's like, oh, but what do they say like in mathematics, right? If you have to cross half the distance, 50% of the distance, then you'll never arrive at your point, because there's always an infinite. There's another half distance.
Yeah.
And so it's like the book, like it flows out, and then it's just, oh my gosh, I can't finish this thing.
Well, I know, man, and I'm such a perfectionist. It's like I wrote it, and then I pulled back for a week and read it again. I was like, oh man, I got to do all this over again. It's been interesting because knowing that I would do that, I went through one pass, edited some stuff up, had a list of things I need to clean up, but then I thought, I'm going to go send it to some friends and have them read it and give me a total outsider's view of it, so that I could really stitch it together to where it makes sense.
Nice.
And that was really, really helpful.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Cool.
I'm dangerously close to finishing it, Wes. That's the way I put it.
Is it, who's it for? I mean, is it like a 101? Is it a 101 and some 202? I mean, does it jump right into master's level?
Here's what I would say. I would say that it is for somebody that has messed around with AI and they're ready to like crank it up a notch. It's not a total beginner book, but it's not, you don't have to be a senior in college to figure it out. So, if we were going to go freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, I would call this a sophomore type of book. Right. If you've never even flicked a switch on AI, go do it and then get the book. But you have to, the people that benefit the most are the people who have actually gone through some other people's training and learned how to write prompts. And then they realize, oh, there's actually a better way to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to write these giant paragraphs, what I call stream of consciousness prompts. I don't have to do that, because you can't teach that to anybody else. You can't have the person next to you look at what you're doing and replicate it for themselves. So if you got a business and you want to learn how to use AI throughout your business, that's what this book is for.
Yeah. And it's, of course you can always get better, but like I tell people, because they'll ask me with Infusionsoft or HubSpot, well, how long before, we're up and running? And I always tell them, like 7 to 10 minutes. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'll build you a web form, like a contact us, that puts them in a list and sends them a confirmation email and sends them your meeting link. That's what you mean, right? Well, no, I mean, oh, you mean like how long before it replaces your whole business and you make money while you're sitting on with the laptop at the beach, your toes in the sand, you're sipping a Mai Tai? I'm like, if you work really hard for 90 days, as hard as you've ever worked in your entire life, A, you'll have a positive ROI, and B, you'll know how to get there. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, I gotta level set these people.
Yeah.
But as they do anything, they get better and better and better. So it sounds like it's the same pathway. It's like, okay, so you start messing with it. You're not efficient, but now you're not new.
Yeah.
And maybe you automate one thing and then a second and then a third. And then, okay, then you get better. Now you automate 10 things in the time it took you to do one. So, I mean, it's just like, you got to dive in, because this is interesting, man. So hurry up and write your book. All right.
Yeah.
Send me a galley version. I'll proof it for you. I got to figure this stuff out. You got me scared now.
Yeah. You got a deal. Look, a bunch of the guys that, the leadership types that have gone through our previous cohorts, they all had been playing around with AI themselves. And they all, it was a 6-week, once a week course. They're all like, wow, what you taught me in this 30 minutes took me 4 weeks to do, and you did it in 10 minutes. And so we've like compressed it. So they all were like, look, if we had to figure this out on our own, we'd be a year from now and we might not even be close to where you are. But in literally in the first 2 days, they like blew away everything that they'd learned up to that point. In fact, one of the guys even called me and said, look, when we hired you and went through your training, we'd also hired this other guy out of Las Vegas to build some AI stuff for us. And now that we've gone through your course and we look at what he's done, we realize he's done it wrong. So can you help us? Like, sure.
So what do people say though? Like, man, I've been seeing these guys and I need to change my subset of friends online. But because I'm connected to a lot of these internet bros. And, a year ago, 2 years ago, buy my course, buy my product, it's on AI. And guys are admitting, like, well, I'm using AI. And, in 5 minutes, I'm writing a course I'm selling for $5,000.
Right.
I'm like, well, okay. So, but I mean, how did you learn this? Were you just super curious and just were early to the game and have just kissed all the frogs and made all the errors?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, at this point, I've probably got a good, I don't know, 7,000 or 8,000 hours of time working on it because I've literally been working with it for 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week for almost 3 years. And I had maybe a couple of days off because it's just, I don't know, it's how I'm wired. It's just fascinating to me and I need to use it in order to do what I'm doing. So it's very meta, right? Like right now, for instance, I had to develop a series of prompts to create the course slide deck, right? So I know what I'm teaching, and LSU has a very specific framework for doing it. They want you to have quizzes, they want you to have learning objectives and all this other stuff, and they all have to be documented. And so I created the process to do all of that. But I have to teach them how to do all that. And I'm using my own framework to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so the first time, I go through it, it takes a little bit. But then I now have the prompt stack. And so for the next 8 modules, I can go crank it all out. But it's not going to be ChatGPT's knowledge that's actually creating the course. It's my stuff. It's just using AI to write it. Like I even taught Claude how to write prompts using our framework, and it does an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do that for the book too. I had to teach it how to write sample prompts, and it actually did.
So is Skynet is it gonna come true? Feels like we're getting close.
I was gonna say it's already true, man. It's there.
This is weird, man.
No, it is. It's wow. And then we can get into hyper political discussions, but it's so fascinating, but it's also scary because the way they can think of it this way. They're already controlling what you can see on Google and on YouTube in terms of algorithm adjustments, right? In AI, they do the same thing. They want to tone it down. So they don't want to do certain things. They don't want it to say certain things.
Yeah.
And like one of our prompts was to try to take a persona and have AI tell us what that persona's biggest fears were towards a specific, product or whatever, outcome they were seeking. And it was rolling, it would give us all their fears. Like, for instance, if you were selling a weight loss product and you say, what are the prospect's biggest fears? I'm using not a B2B product, but a B2C. And it would come back and it would say, not being able to fit in a dress. It would come up with these really interesting things. And then I ran the prompt through Claude one day and it had been working like a charm. And then all of a sudden Claude comes back and says, I don't feel comfortable writing misleading or using misleading tactics to write. And I'm like, oh, you got all PC on me now.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really, really interesting how it took the way I phrased something and then immediately applied something to it. And I was like, that's not what I'm asking. Like, I even uploaded some stuff and it says, I can't do this on copyrighted material. I said, it's my material. And then it said, oh, in that case,
Oh,
This is interesting.
well, I saw something. It's popped up a couple of times where they asked. I think it was just ChatGPT. It said, if I could misgender Caitlyn Jenner and it would save President Trump, from being assassinated, would you do it? No, I could not misgender, blah, blah, blah. And so they did a screenshot and they tagged Caitlyn Jenner. And to his credit, he's like, you can totally misgender me for that. Like, come on, people.
Oh,
So I
that's
was like,
funny.
all right,
That's funny.
kudos to Bruce.
Yeah.
But yeah, these things. And I never completely understood the bias, right? But my son, he's a computer science major, lives in San Francisco. He's in this whole crypto and tech space. And he gave me examples, and because you just don't understand things. Like, I don't know anything about the Chinese culture.
Right.
Right. I mean, yeah, I've read books, I've studied, but it's like, so if I'm writing some code, if I'm programming some things to, hey, give some answers, I don't even know like what websites in China to go index.
Right.
So it's going to be skewed. He says, think about it. All of our search, all these things, they're skewed by they're written by 25-year-old white geeks.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, that's scary, So it's got to build in room, I guess, if you will, for other answers, other societies, other cultures. But I mean, they got to get the freaking judgment out of it. That's why I love like what Elon's doing. Do not censor hateful, anti-Semitic, whatever, racist, sexist, blah, 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 whatever. Let us see people for who they are.
Yeah, dialogue
and then we
is good.
can judge how we want to deal with them, if we want to deal with them at all.
Yeah.
Maybe you just ignore them. But to have a 25-year-old white dude in Mountain View, Silicon Valley, oh no, that's not appropriate. Like, dude, kiss my ass. It's like, I'm so throttled on Facebook, and literally I've been thrown in jail like 3 times, and every time it was for a rhetorical comment.
Oh, really?
Once it was for a quote, right? And I'm like, can't you see the what is it? Not the syntax, but I mean, like, how is this being used? It's like, I'm not saying that. I'm quoting it.
Right.
And
let me give you a really funny one here. 3, maybe 4 years ago, we were doing Facebook ads for Copeland's. You know who Copeland's is?
the jewelry store, right?
No. So you've heard of Popeye's Fried Chicken, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, Popeye's Fried Chicken, made by a guy named Al Copeland. He created another restaurant called Copeland's, which is kind of a, I don't know what you'd call it. It's it's a nice little restaurant, So maybe like an upscale Chili's or something like that. Anyway, good stuff, right?
I love Chili's mozzarella sticks, so no hate on Chili's here, okay?
There you go, right? But anyway, so and it's since it's from New Orleans, that it's going to have New Orleans food. And we run these ads, and every Thanksgiving and Christmas they do fried turkeys. We knew video promotes a whole lot better and creates a lot more conversions than static pictures. So we uploaded a video, somebody frying a turkey. They banned our account and banned the ad. And then they reinstated our account, but banned the ad. And it was like, why are you blocking this ad? And they said because it promotes violence. And I was like, dude, it's a dead turkey. Okay. It's not live. It's not like crawfish where we're throwing them in alive. We had to go back and forth. And I want to say it took like 3 to 4 weeks before they let the ad run, because it was frying turkey. So some vegan, I guess, got offended. Facebook. Yeah, it was Facebook. It was nuts. And then I think it was, I don't know whether it was Google or Microsoft, I don't know, Gemini. One of these things was creating images, right? You heard about that? It was just a couple months ago. So, they have all these image generators like DALL-E and Midjourney where you can create images, and they do an amazing job. Well, this one, they just kind of over fine-tuned the sensitivities on it. And if you told it to generate a picture of, I forgot what it was. Maybe it was the Revolutionary War. I forget. It was a couple of pictures. It would, the founding fathers of the United States, those kinds of things. It would not generate a picture of a white person. It was all diverse, and they're like, wow, and it's a big story. It made it all kind of stuff on Google and everything. They immediately shut it down because no matter what you tried, you could not
I do remember. Now you say it, yes.
Yeah, and I forgot what it was, but they were giving examples where, however good or bad you want to see it, it was a replica of just white people, and it wouldn't do it. Now they shut it all down, and I'm sure they're trying to fine tune it. But that's the thing that scares me about AI, is that somebody's in control of what it'll say and do.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. It's dinner time for you.
Man.
Thanks for carving out so much time. So I'm linking to your site, linking to your LinkedIn. This will go live about a month, I guess, before the book is ready, right? So we'll be on the waiting list. And this is cool, man. I try to get out once a year. I missed last year. I try to get out once a year for a game. So I'll let you know when I head out.
Yeah, let me know for sure. I used to have season tickets, but this year I wasn't able to get them. I had just amazing tickets on the 50-yard line, about 30 some odd rows up. But the guy I usually buy them from, he said his brother-in-law wanted them this year. I'm like, dang it. But anyway.
Well, I've gotten spoiled because my best friends growing up, and one was the best man at my wedding, and there's 3 brothers, and their parents, all 5 of them are godparents, our kids, and so they have 2 suites.
Wow.
I don't know if you remember, right where the marching band turns to go down to Tiger Stadium.
Yeah.
Huge oak tree, and there's always the LSU bread truck. So that's my friends.
So how we doing?
So they map that out first. So that's always the place. And then, so that's catered, hush puppies and crawfish and whatever. I mean, typical. But then when you're in the suites, all the food's included too. I was like, how do y'all eat? Like, I can't eat this much. And y'all do this like every other week? For 6 months or, 4 months? Like, good grief.
That's awesome.
It was so good.
So
I'm spoiled in those suites, man. Holy cow.
Oh, I can imagine. Well, they're always fun, those games. So definitely holler at me if you're going to come to town. The odds are I'll make my way to the stadium or somewhere to have lunch,
Sounds good.
Well, Wes, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on. It was great meeting you. And if you do make it back to the homeland,
I will.
You need to make a bypass to Cajun country too.
I know. I got a good friend there in Lafayette as well. So I got reasons. I got excuses. It's a business trip.
That's
I'm
right.
learn about AI over crawfish.
That's right. There you go. Write it off, baby. Write it off.
Let's le bon temps roulé, baby.
There you go.
All right, Mr. John, all the way from Lafayette. Thanks for coming on the show, man. It's been great.
All right, Wes. Thanks. I enjoyed it too. Have a great one.
All right, you too.